those, I think also for a lot of the knowledge management practitioners looking at this this talk, it can be very practical to implement those, because it's kind of a structured way of looking at KM. And I can give you some examples if you...
Examples would be great.
Because I saw, for example, the 4 elements, and I actually rearranged them for myself to be able to remember them. I call them E.C.H.O. It's about experimenting, it's about collaboration, it's human-centered, and it's about optimism. And so together, they form the word E.C.H.O. for, so at least I can remember. But they're also, if you look at those 4 elements, they're often 4 elements that keep reappearing in design thinking. And I'm also the first to say they're somewhat obvious if I run through them, but still today, after so many years of practicing knowledge management and these projects, still we haven't really figured them out. For example, take the human-centered part.
Right.
Which has a lot to do with empathy. I mean, still so often knowledge management projects forget the end user, the knowledge worker, and which is why very often they don't reap the results they want to reap.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. To me, design thinking, since I discovered it, I was one of the first people to discover it from a business perspective, and I was jumping for joy because I just recently had come out of business school, and nobody had ever thought that way or taught me that way, and it's no wonder that people are so excited now to be able to be given permission to be able to be creative and to be user-centered. But it's been my experience that knowledge management has come up a lot in many of the projects that I've worked on, one of which I just recall very quickly. We were working for one of the largest foundations in the country, and they were trying to improve their grantee experience. But when it came down to the grantee experience, it was fraught with knowledge management issues, and not addressing those knowledge management issues was part of the reason that the experience was not optimized. And so to optimize the experience, knowledge management played a huge role, and in all kinds of protocols, processes, systems, you name it. It was just the whole problem was fraught with knowledge management. So I think it's a good combination of things to be talking about in an organized way.
So in that example, did they figure it out, or was it very driven by systems and technology, or?
Well, yes, they did figure it out, but it was the structured thinking of the design thinking process that I think made codified user issues, gave us the fodder for generating a lot of ideas that could be categorized and driven out into the organization by the people that could control them. I mean, it had so many benefits to what was then a chaotic problem for this client that they didn't know really where to start. And it was easier to do it after we used a design thinking process.
Yeah, the empathy part, the human-centered part, the H in the E.C.H.O acronym, that, I mean, it really resonates to me. I learned the hard way. One of the first projects I did, a marketing project for a large beer company who were launching an energy drink in Burundi. So this was a new drink, and I was asked to launch it in the country and make sure everyone was aware and was drinking it. And it didn't even taste that, well, I won't say it tasted bad, but it was a different kind of taste. You had to get used to it. And one of the events we organized was a marathon. And a marathon through Bujumbura, the capital, and it went all across town for 42 kilometers. And I was so fixed on the product that I was supposed to launch that I said, why not have everyone just drink the product that we're launching? Let's not give them water or, Gatorade or whatever. Just give them the product so it'll kind of force people to drink it. Well, that was a bad decision because I was in a little Jeep with the logo of this project behind the pack of runners. And at a certain point, I saw people taking garden hoses to the street to give the runners water. And my Jeep started getting pegged with stones because I was the guy who was, forcing them to drink this drink. And I basically had to escape and get out of there because, and the lesson I learned is that I was so focused on the product and had so little empathy for in this case, the runners. And I really wanted to push this product that I totally forgot that, I mean, if you're a runner, you want water, you want maybe something that's hydrating, but not necessarily this new drink. So that was very early on in my career, and I never forgot that. I mean, don't forget who you're doing it for, and even if it's not in your own interest,
Yeah.
maybe you shouldn't start it, or you should, adjust what you were planning to do. But if you don't, then you can get into real trouble. And, but I survived. I'm still here.
No
so.
doubt. And the streets are paved with mistakes of people designing things from the inside out and not from the outside in, and not thinking about the user. And I think that's one of the big attractions to design thinking now, because those mistakes are so costly. They take so much time. They're such setbacks. And the world's moving too fast to have that anymore. So I think that's one of the reasons that we see this big uptake.
Yeah. No. So empathy is very is key. And another project this was a KM project I was involved with. You mentioned an award we won years ago. This was for work in China, where this was a large multinational company that was concerned about the knowledge flows to China, because they had a lot of technology and a technical expertise on how to produce certain products, lamps in this case, and they wanted to produce in China for low cost, but they were worried about how the knowledge would be managed in China. So their ask was basically write a policy on how we do knowledge transfer. But delving into the actual challenge, it was all about how Chinese culture deals with knowledge and how they deal with the ownership of knowledge and the sharing. And so it totally morphed into a project which was focused on the end user, which were Chinese colleagues in China, instead of a report which would have been on paper and probably would not have really been successfully implemented.
Yeah.
But it was fascinating how that morphed. So if you really delve into the problem from the end user, you might be doing in the KM sphere, you might be doing totally different things than you anticipated.
Yeah. That's why I think, what you're talking about is one of the essential elements of design thinking. It's reframing the problem. Once you really understand what people are experiencing on the ground, you see the problem in a different way. You know what their issues are, and it's much easier to solve for their issues once they're tangible.